there. All right, all right, all right. What is going on? What is going on? It's your girl, Melba Pearson, Melba for Miami, Melba for Justice, and it is time for another Mondays with Melba. So excited because we've got on dear friends Raquel Pacheco and Aaron Bos-Lun. Raquel, y'all have met previously on the show where she is running for a commission seat in the city of Miami Beach. And we are actually having a runoff. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and what that means and what it means for you. And of course, we got to do a shout out to Michelle Bos-Lun, who is a boss up in Vermont. That's our girl, Aaron's mama. Everybody's Women Crush Wednesday. So, hey, Michelle. So, y'all, welcome to Mondays with Melba.
Thank you so much, Melba. It's a pleasure to be back. I admire you so much, and I really appreciate you. Really appreciate you having me on for a second time. You've been a tremendous support, and you're someone I totally look up to. So I'm so excited because we're in a runoff. We're neck to neck with my opponent, and we worked so hard to get there. And it's just wonderful to see like the way that the community has gotten behind us and all these organizations and the Democratic Party and the LGBTQ community, which has been super involved in our campaign every step of the way, I'm happy to say, from start to finish. And so we're moving on. We have our big election November 16th with early voting starting this Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 8 to 4. And so now it's really about mobilizing, right? We have to get everybody to do it one more time. And therein lies the challenge. So we're doing as much outreach as we can. I literally just got home from canvassing with our fire department because they have endorsed me, and I'm very, very proud of that because we love our firefighters, and they're amazing. And we had a really, really successful afternoon that put me in amazing spirits right now, as you can tell, because I'm all smiles. So it's really great. Yes. Really excited. Really excited.
Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. So, first of all, let's start with, Aaron, I'm going to turn to you to kind of talk about what does it mean to be in a runoff, right? Like, because I think, folks, we take for granted that people know what all these terms mean and how it affects and impacts, what their next steps are. So can you explain a little bit about what a runoff means and what comes next?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's like when we were talking about local politics back in 19 years ago in May when I was on the show about how to get involved in local elections. And that, turnout tends to be really, really low. And actually, this last commission election, for a number of reasons, was, I believe, the second highest turnout in the history of a Miami Beach City Commission election, which is a good thing in terms of engagement. The bad news is it still could be a lot higher. And so the thinking is, if you have, these contested elections with a lot of people in them, you have 4 or 5 candidates, and no one gets to 50%, then it goes into sort of a top 2 runoff election where the voters get to choose between those two, so that you don't have someone who maybe has, 25% support who wins, who otherwise wouldn't be the top choice. So the city holds it 2 weeks later. It's a quick turnaround, and it makes sure that the ultimate outcome of the election is reflective of how people feel about the candidates on the whole, and not someone who got lucky because it was a very divided field that made support sort of get distributed in a way that wasn't reflective of voter will. So the way it actually works is that starting this Friday, and then on Saturday and on Sunday, you can vote at North Shore Library, or you can vote at City Hall from 8 in the morning till 4 p.m. You can vote early at either of those locations if you're a registered Miami Beach voter. You can also return your vote by mail ballot, but because of the way Florida law works, it's really, if you're going to vote by mail, you should drop that off in person at the drop boxes at North Shore Library or at City Hall, because, some of my one-day Amazon packages take 4 days these days, so you never quite know. We don't want to gamble on that. And so you should drop that ballot off in person. You could vote early, 8 in the morning to 4 p.m., North Shore Library or City Hall, or you can vote on election day at your designated precinct from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m., which will be next Tuesday. So that's the idea. Top two, there's a runoff in our race and in Group 3, not for the mayor who was elected outright with more than 50% of the vote, but for us and in Group 3 as well.
Awesome. Awesome. So everybody knows November 16th, that is the big day, but there are a couple things coming up before that, right? So we're getting our vote by mail ballots in the mail. I saw that mine is arriving momentarily, so I'll be sure to do that. We know we need to drop them off at those 2 locations, and that we know we can either do that or vote on actual election day. Whatever you do, make sure that you vote. So let's talk a little bit more and remind folks about your platform and what you stand for. And so let's do the recap. What are the 3 big issues that you intend to take on as a city commissioner?
Sure. Love to. So at the forefront of everything is this chaotic situation we've had with our entertainment district and the uncertainty of that situation and what we're going to do about it. So one of, my top issues, of course, is to start looking towards programming, year-round programming that can help to get to draw a better crowd and to really make it more of a resident-friendly type of atmosphere. So my plan for that is to really step up police presence in the area. I've also been, juggling this idea of having ambassadors, which I think could be very helpful, to having ambassadors in our Art Deco cultural district that engage with our visitors. But really, ultimately, I think, a lot of it is about is programming and making sure that we set the mood and the stage for what the type of events and the tone that we want to set in our entertainment district. Another major thing that, aside from the obvious, which is what everybody's concerned about, is, this the situation in the entertainment district is high, sea level rise. We have to deal with sea level rise. I mean, it's a real thing, and we are very vulnerable, extremely vulnerable. And so I'm really looking forward to digging deep into that issue and finding out what we can do, and consulting with global experts on this issue and having them advise us on what we need to do. I know that we need better pump systems. We need better drainage. We need more green spaces for water absorption. We need to look at our seawalls, and we really need to think about how we design our city to deal with the rising threat of sea level rise. And another major concern, my third concern, would be our building safety structure, because after what happened in Surfside, it was sort of like a tragic wake-up call for the rest of us. And I think it's imperative that we really start to look at how often we do these inspections. 40 years might not be adequate given all of the geographic shifts that we're experiencing in our region because of sea level rise. And so, I think there's so many other issues there also, as it relates to affordability. A lot of people can't afford to keep up with the special assessments that are necessary to maintain, the highest standards of building safety. So we have to look at what we can do to alleviate some of the financial burden. And we can look at, maybe, low interest government backed loans that can assist residents to navigate through that process. But then also there's the education and outreach part of that, because as you all know, a lot of these homeowners associations are volunteer based. And these folks are just regular people like you and I. I was one of them for 8 years who was in charge. I was HOA president for 8 years. And I got to tell you, it's really difficult to navigate, not just because, you may not have the technical expertise, but also because it's hard to navigate through the city with the building department and inspections and permits and all of the stuff that goes along with it. So we really have to tackle that process as we go forward, so we can prevent and anticipate any issues related to our building structure safety.
Awesome. Awesome. Raquel, that is a great recap of some of the key issues that we're really facing in our community, how to move forward with what to do in the entertainment district, how to move forward with the constant king tide and our streets being flooded and you're basically swimming to your car, and trying to get in and out of your buildings, which is something, and destroyed a number of shoes. Thank you very much. Yeah, I've been there, done that, resemble that comment. But okay, so let's talk a little bit more about 2 a.m. So I know that we had, there was a straw vote, right? Which is non-binding because it's a straw vote. It wasn't an actual ballot initiative from the standpoint that whatever the outcome is, the government is bound by it. But okay, there's the straw poll, or the straw ballot that said folks wanted the entertainment district to basically close down at 2 a.m. What are the next steps? What needs to happen from here?
So it's a really great question. It's on the top of everyone's list right now, right? It is a straw ballot. It was a straw vote. It is non-binding. However, I have always stated, and I remain I stand by that statement, that I would respect the will of the voters. The voters have spoken. They are fed up, and they want something. They want a fix. But if you look at the language, it's very specific. It's 2 a.m. citywide with exemptions. Those exemptions have not yet been explained to us or laid out or proposed in any way. So what I'm being asked to do is speculate, which can become problematic, right? So here's what I want to say. I have always thought that this 2 a.m. rollback was a red herring, and it wasn't really going to be the issue, what's going to solve our problems. And I have concerns, serious concerns, for people like my brother or my neighbors who work in the industry. I mean, tens of thousands of people in our city who depend on those paychecks to feed their children and pay their rent. And, in 3 hours, 5 days a week times 4 weeks a month, it literally is the difference between being able to do that and not. I don't care about the millions that are lost to these super wealthy hotel and restaurant owners. They'll be fine. But what I do worry about is how that's going to impact my neighbors, my family, and their neighbors and family, because that's a reality, right? And we haven't really looked at that. So first and foremost, what I think we need to do is we need to look at this as a really wonderful opportunity to clean house. And we should start with the low-lying fruit, I should say. So first and foremost, my concern is residential neighborhoods. I never really thought it made sense to have clubs in residential neighborhoods like South of Fifth that are open till 5 a.m. I never quite understood that. So first and foremost, maybe that's what we should look at first, is protecting our residential neighborhoods and going after those locations. Secondly, reviewing those locations. Secondly, I think we should look at bad operators. If you have a record of code violations, of crime, of violence at your establishment, those folks maybe should be at the top of the list. And these are just my recommendations right off the top of my head, because again, nothing's been proposed yet, right? And then, of course, the exemptions would be, I think, for places that, are either contained, like within hotels, or that are indoors and that don't really, the noise level doesn't impact the people around them, the residents around them. We need to maybe consider having on-site security, noise mitigation efforts, things that will enhance quality of life and ensure security for all. But it's clear to me the residents want a change. It's clear to me that we should honor the residents' will. I am not in the business of getting elected so I can go against the will of the voters. And to that effect, I just want to point to the fact that I have remained consistent through this. Even before I ran for office, I said the 2 a.m. was not a fix. And despite having been endorsed by Mayor Gelber and others who are very pro 2 a.m., I have remained consistent on that. My opponent has not. She has completely gone back and forth. Before the election, she suggested we should close at 10:30. Then when she was running, she went on record several times saying she was against the 2 a.m. Now that the voters have spoken, she is not just for 2 a.m., but she's saying she's for 2 a.m. with no exemptions, which would go against the will of the voters. So I just want to say I have been very consistent. I am not going to go against the will of the voters, but I am really concerned with first protecting our residential neighborhoods and then applying this law in a way that is fair across the board. Not because one person in this neighborhood doesn't like this business or vice versa. It has to be fair and it has to be applied equally across the board. And there's a lot to be determined, and the conversations haven't even begun. So, I want everybody to just sort of take a deep breath and realize that we're moving in the right direction, but it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of conversations. And I'm looking forward to being on the days and getting the feedback of those residents and really listening to the different neighborhood associations and working with them as much as I can. But again, it has to be fair and it has to be equal. And that's what matters to me.
Mhm.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, because I'm right there with you from the standpoint that the 2 a.m. closing is not a fix, right? Remember, former prosecutor, right? So, 16 years in the game and living on the beach for 25 years. So,
Right.
2 a.m. is not the fix.
Right.
The fix really is making sure that you're addressing too many people in the same hotel room, that you're addressing, making sure that you're working with promoters to have events so that, you have staggered release of people, right? The same way,
Right.
like school doesn't let out everybody at the same time. You have high school gets out at one time, elementary school gets out at another time, middle school, et cetera, et cetera. So, you have to have staggered release so that you don't have people all bottlenecked, as we saw how badly things turned out during spring break, right? Because
Right.
everybody was out at the same time. There was nowhere for people to go. And then, chaos ensued. So there are a number of different things that can be implemented in order to, change what's happening and make sure that everybody can enjoy being on the beach. So yeah, definitely looking forward to, hearing all that. So
Yeah. I mean, there are some bad operators out there, and this is a tremendous opportunity for us to clean house, right? So let's start with the obvious and let's do that. But, another thing I want to talk about is, measured results. If you're going to tell me that 2 a.m. is the reason why crime is up, then let's measure that. Let's do this as a pilot program. Let's say, whatever it is, 6 months, a year, whatever the community decides. But let's measure that, because don't tell me one thing and then show me another, while possibly really hurting a lot of people and their quality of life. So it's about residents. It's about their ability to keep people living here. Our census shows that we've lost, close to 10,000 people, permanent residents. This may not, this may make matters worse as it relates to permanent residents in our cities. So I want to make sure that that this is really result driven. That's what I want.
Yeah, and I'm just going to highlight, and hey, Betsy, going to highlight a question from her because it definitely, is a good one. Has anyone discussed the root cause of the violence? Why are people so willing to bring total pandemonium? So, again, we saw kind of how things went incredibly sideways during spring break. Part of it I will lay firmly at the feet of the governor because of the fact that he was like, Florida's open for business. There's no COVID here, whatever. So you had all these people getting $39 flights to Miami to, cut up because where they are, there was pandemic restrictions and clubs weren't open, restaurants weren't open, et cetera, et cetera. But, moving forward, what do you think are some of the root causes for the violence that we've seen? And again, is this something that we can address on the dais, or is it something that is a broader issue? Again, looking at socioeconomic concerns, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I think that what we saw in 2020 was sort of like a perfect storm, right? We had people, like you said, pent up in other states where restrictions were really rigid and, a lot of downtime, and people started to get really, cabin feverish. And here we are with a governor who says, hey, there's no COVID in Florida. Come on down,
Right.
And we combine that with a street party situation where we close off Ocean Drive, because let's be real, I'm really tired of this nonsense. The facts are these folks are not spending money inside of these restaurants. The party and the violence, the craziness is not happening inside. It's on the street. I don't know how much more obvious that could be. So it's a perfect storm. Low flights, low rates, cheap air tickets, low hotel rooms, more disposable income, and people with a lot of time on their hands, coming here and letting loose and having no respect for I guess decency in some level. But the situation is such that we have to look at the root causes, and I'm a huge proponent of programming. Okay. If you don't program and you just throw your hands up in the air and say, hey, let's see what happens, you can't complain later that things didn't go your way. When you look at things, when you look at like Art Basel or the Food and Wine Festival or the White Parties, all the stuff that we program year round, they're pretty flawless events. I can't say we have had any major crime outbreaks or craziness go on. So if we program, for example, spring break to be a couple of months of like really high end athletic events. Like I'm thinking out loud here, but I'm thinking, triathlons, soccer tournaments on the sand, and we bring international teams and we just fill up our hotels with athletes and families and their families and friends. Like we can set the tone for what we want in our city. But sitting back, corralling people into what, like a few blocks and then surrounding them by police is not programming. That's literally just giving up. Okay. And I've been saying that for years. We have to be proactive. We have to plan. And I'm super confident that that is our solution. I support the mayor's plan and vision about a more diverse area, about a live workplace scenario on Ocean Drive. I'm open to that. I want to explore that further, but let's face it, that's not going to happen overnight. We're talking about zoning changes. We're talking about all kinds of stuff that's going to take 5, 10, 15 years. We need solutions now. And so programming to me is probably one of the most effective approaches that I've seen personally.
Yeah. And that's something, as, not only an attorney, but as an activist and an advocate, that I've been saying for decades that, listen, and as someone who worked in PR and used to plan events and parties and all of that, if you build it, they will come, right?
Exactly.
People are, if they see an agenda of things to do, they'll hang out and they'll do it, and they'll, find different ways to entertain themselves in a safe manner. But we have to be willing to build it and not just turn a blind eye or say, none of this work. Let's just throw a whole bunch of police at the problem and that's going to fix everything.
We cannot police our way out of this. We just can't. Not just from a logistical standpoint, but also from a financial standpoint. 2/3 of our budget is already allocated to police and fire. How much more are we willing to pay? We could use more police officers. That's a fact. We've lost quite a few. I've met with the police department several times with the union, the FOP, and without a question, I've seen the numbers. We have lost a lot of police officers. The applications are low, and that's not just here. That's nationally. With all of the bad rep that police officers have been getting and all the exposure of their misconduct nationwide, the numbers are down. People are turned off by this, and so we have to be creative about how we're going to recruit good police officers. And I understand that that's a real concern. We have to have it, but we cannot police our way out of this, nor should we. We don't want to become a militant city. We want to continue this wonderful vibe that we have here, and I think we can achieve that through active programming.
Yeah. So, you mentioned military sort of as part of basically we don't want to be in a police state type of situation, but you actually served in the military. And to be clear, serving in the military doesn't necessarily mean you went and saw war, right? But it just meant that you joined the armed forces and you were ready to go to war for our country and put your life at risk. So let's talk a little bit about that, especially as Veterans Day is coming up around the corner.
Yes, I did serve. And I just want to say, with Veterans Day coming up around the corner, I just want to thank everyone who is in service or has been in service or is thinking about going into service. I have a lot of family and friends who have family who are currently in the service. I served 6 years in the Connecticut Army National Guard from 93 to 99. At the Connecticut AVCRAD, which is the aviation unit that was the first unit to be activated during both of the Gulf Wars. I just got lucky. I literally served in the 6 years between the two Gulf Wars, and I wasn't activated. But we lost people from our unit, and it's really oh, sorry, dog barking. It's really, it's a tremendous sacrifice, not just for those of us who are actually in it, but for our families as well. And, I have a cousin who has a son who's been in it, and it's not easy. Your whole family suffers. Your whole family is on the line when you sign up, and whether you go to war or not, because, ultimately the goal is to not go to war. Right? That's the goal. But we all sign up knowing that that's a real challenge. And when I was in the military, when I was in boot camp in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, there was actually a real possibility that we were going to go be activated. And that's something we all had to grapple with. But we signed up for that. It goes with the territory. So, yeah, and I have to say, Melba, my opponent recently, published an endorsement from a community leader, let's say. And it was less of an endorsement of her and more of an attack on me and every servicewoman and man in this country. The claim is that because I did not serve during wartime, my service is not relevant, apparently. And I just want to say that I can handle that attack, but I think it's probably one of the lowest points in our city's government, in our campaign, in our history, to go after the servicemen and women who sacrifice and put their lives on the line every day to keep us safe. So I just want to say I think that's a really nasty, awful thing to do. And that's all I have to say about that.
And one thing I'm going to say, as someone who's run for office, especially as a woman of color, that who your stands are tell a lot about you.
Thank you.
And how they move tells a lot about you.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, there's somebody who is, apparently, Raquel, you living rent free in their head. You doing laps in their head because they got a whole lot to say, including criticizing appearance, criticizing your home. And, it's real funny because, people are real brave behind a keyboard. But when it comes to actually getting out there and doing something, whether it's putting your life on the line, by serving in the military, not knowing if you're going to go to war and get a bullet in your head tomorrow or be blown up by an IED, right? When it comes to actually getting out and knocking on doors or coming forward with productive solutions for the community, they're nowhere to be found. But they're quick to insult folks, which is really so. And it's sad that that's where we are as a country, because it really should be focused on the issues and whether or not, asking questions and understanding what someone's platform is, as opposed to just being, trifling and insulting. So moving on. All right. So, thank you for sharing that. So, Aaron, I'm going to pivot to you. Can you talk about ways that, folks are moved by Raquel's campaign and by her platform and for her vision for our beloved city? What can they do to get involved?
Yeah, no, and it's a reminder of why I was drawn to Raquel originally. I remember when she ran in 2019. I met her. She was hanging out at the Hotel Gathering on a Friday night, and greeting the gays. And she I remember thinking she was a veteran and a single mom, an advocate for the public school where her son, at that point, was a new student. Now he's 8 years old. He's a little farther in. A small business owner and someone who lived a couple blocks from me, and just sort of a real person, and someone who believes in service, who's always been in service. And I think, to me, that's what this campaign is really about. It's about a fresh vision that's about people and about service, compared to something that's nasty and divisive and tired. And we don't need that kind of energy in our city. It doesn't solve problems. That kind of, the desperation that desperate people do is not what we need right now. We need something more positive. So how can you get involved? I mean, we're fully available. You can reach out through our social media pages. You can reach out through our cell phones. You can reach out in any way you want to get involved. We have plenty of opportunities for days of action. We have plenty of opportunities to plug into our Canvas program. We're running a very aggressive Canvas program all over the city. People knocking on doors every single day, and in Mid Beach and South Beach and North Beach. There are endless opportunities to plug into that. And it's also something that I think is worth sort of each of us thinking about, is what kind of a city do we want to live in, and how do we want to behave ourselves? Because I think, and I'm not the first to observe this by any means, but I think it's been sad to see the level of pettiness and the level of nastiness and the level of really personal, irrelevant detail and anger that's made its way into this. And we're at a point where we can turn a corner here and we can focus really on solving problems. And it can be Raquel who's the one who helps us do that. And so I think for a lot of people, that's what they're seeing in this campaign. And that's what we have, a broad coalition and a lot of people And so I just encourage you to speak up, and I encourage you to talk to your neighbors, and I encourage you to really think about the place we're living in, and what kind of city are we going to be?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Aaron. So I'm going to do the call out that I know is always hard. Listen, elections cost money. They cost money. It's not free to be able to put up signs. It's not free to be able to pay folks to knock on doors. While volunteers are amazing and they can get a lot done, there's still stuff that as a candidate you have to pay for, whether it be, radio ads, whether it be television, again, signs, t-shirts, things like that. If you can, please donate. Her website is RaquelPacheco2021.com. RaquelPacheco2021.com. If you're not able to donate, try and volunteer. Do a couple hours of knocking on doors and talking to your neighbors about her platform and what she represents and why you're supporting her. Make phone calls. You can do some phone banking at home where literally, you dial into a program, you use your cell phone, and nobody actually sees your number, so it's not like you're sharing like that. And you can call a whole bunch of local voters to again talk to them about Raquel and her platform. So that's another way to get involved. So if you can, please do so. 8 days till basically election day, which is on the 16th. So there's some time there to get the word out. So let's definitely do that. And, definitely learn more. And most importantly, vote, because your vote is your voice, right? Like this is going to govern the direction of what's going to happen in our community, how we're going to address climate change, how we're even going to try to address these changes in the entertainment district, right? Because again, there's a mandate from the people. The mayor has his agenda, and then there's folks, all the folks in between, right? Like the 4,000 health, hospitality workers who are going to be out of a job if it's a hard stop at 2 a.m. Like the economic impact that this can have to our community, which would result in higher taxes for us, right? Because that money is going to come from somewhere. If it's not coming from people spending money in our community, it's coming out of our pockets. Trust and believe. So these are all things that are on the ballot. And that's why this election is so incredibly important. So folks, remember to donate if you can, volunteer, but most importantly, be sure to vote if you're in Miami Beach. If you're not, holler at your friends that live on the beach, because everybody knows at least one friend that lives in South Beach. So make sure they know what time it is and that they need to come out and vote next week. Turning it over to the two of you for final thoughts before we sign off.
I just want to say thank you again, Melba. It's always an honor to be with you. I hope that I will see you on Tuesday night at our event, which is tomorrow night. But in any event, I just want to say thank you for all of your support. You are a champion for equality in our community, and I want to be you when I grow up. So thank you very much. And I want to say thank you to Aaron, who's been the absolute best campaign manager anyone could ask for. And I'm really excited and just grateful for our entire city who came out and voted for me in that 30% in the general election, because it shows that our city is really ready for responsible, reliable change. And we are just going to get past the drama, and we're going to unite because we have to for the greater good. And that's what I'm about, building consensus and moving forward with facts and honesty and transparency. So thank you so much. Really appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you, Melba.
Bye, everybody. Vote, 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 vote.
That's it right there. And I just, again, gotta give kudos, because it is never easy to run for office. It is never easy to put yourself out there. And it takes a lot out of you personally and professionally. So I know the path that you've walked. Keep your head up and keep fighting the good fight. And to all of you, thank you for tuning in. Like, share, comment. Make sure to get engaged and tune in next week, because we'll be talking about school safety. All right, y'all. Take good care. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.